I was intrigued when Ilyasa sent me the background of this event and the 30 years that it has taken place, because I grew up at a time when there were those of us that would get in those debates of whether we were with Malcolm or whether we were with Martin. I joined the movement when I was very young. I was a boy preacher in the Pentecostal church, which led me at 12 years old to join Operation Breadbasket in New York, which was the economic arm of Dr. King's organization. The awkward part of that for young folks that think I'm talking prehistoric history is that growing up in the King movement in New York was not a popular thing, because the perception was that this was a town out of the North that did not believe in King's tactics. And the argument was you can't be a Martin person in a Malcolm town. The fact of the matter is that as time went on, I became youth director of King's New York branch at 13 when the year he was killed. As time went on, what became interesting to me, and something that you ought to have as a lesson in life, is where the King-Malcolm images have been distorted by writers. The ones that understood it better than anyone was their widows. Because Dr. Betty, who I got to know well, and Coretta Scott King, who I got to know well, formed a friendship and a bond long before the followers of their husbands understood that it is one movement, even though we may have different tactics. The fact is that I remember when I went to the hospital when Dr. Shabazz was burned right before death, and I would go and sit in the lobby and I would visit Ilyasa and her sisters. And one day they said, "You got to wait, come up, Reverend Al," because Coretta was coming. And Coretta was there at the end. Dr. Betty was always there for Coretta. There was something about the shared pain of these women that both watched their husband's death by assassination at the same age of 39, that they could reach beyond the philosophical, ego-based battles to deal with the bigger picture. And I raise that because I would encourage you to reach past that. The battle is not whether we want human rights or civil rights, because we want both. If someone landed from abroad at JFK Airport this morning and got off the plane, they should have human rights. They should not be killed. They should not be molested. They should not be in any way treated unfairly. That is their human right. But they don't have the civil right to vote. They don't have the civil right to participate in things that only citizens can. So blacks and Latinos and LGBTQ and Asians should not have to choose between both. If we were born here or citizens here, we deserve our human rights and our civil rights. That's like arguing whether you should love your mom or your daddy. You should love both of them. Or whether we want integration or separation. Well, Dr. King fought for desegregation. Big difference. Because the myth is that he was fighting because he felt that there was something divine about eating in white folks' diners or sitting on a toilet next to somebody white. The position was that if we pay the same taxes that secures with policing your diner, that gives the street lights outside your diner, then we ought to have the same right as anybody else that pay the same taxes to eat in your diner. If we pay the same bus fare, we should be able to sit where everybody else pays the same bus fare. It's not about who we're next to. It's if you're going to have integrated money, then we're going to have integrated service for the money. So as we matured in this thing, we found out that those that denied us the right to vote, those that denied us equal educational opportunities, those that denied us unequal economic opportunities, they did not ask us whether we was with Malcolm or Martin, whether we was Baptist or Muslim. They saw us as one. Problem is, we had to start seeing ourselves as one. And that we had to use different tactics to achieve the same goal. If I were to go from here to southern New Jersey and got on 95 South to go, you ride one lane, I ride another lane, as long as we get to where we're going, why are we on the highway arguing about what lane we're on? So academicians have a lane, and activists have a lane. And those in media have a lane, and lawyers have a lane. If everyone does what they do, it pushes all of us forward. The problem is that when we have this crazy definition of what makes someone more relevant than the other, rather than understanding we've never been a one-dimensional people. And you don't have to be that now. I look at the honorees today, and they are well selected and well deserving of being honored. And they have different lanes. And what they do well. Don't forget, in the 60s, we had Malcolm, we had Martin, we had Fannie Lou Hamer, we had Thurgood Marshall in the courts, we had Adam Clayton Powell in the Congress, all at one time. Wasn't just one or two people in the 60s, there was a multiplicity of leadership. So how do we get to the 21st century with all this technology and we can have a one Negro talk at a time? Don't let people limit you, and don't let people marginalize what discipline you may have. Do what you do best and that what fits you. And then others do that, and it will all be complementary. You that grew up in church know we have a choir. We had an inspirational group sing today. Everybody in the choir doesn't sing the same notes. Some are soprano, some are alto, some are tenor, some are bass. Some can't sing at all, just move their lips. But all of that makes a choir. So my message to you today is find out what you do and what you can do well. And don't try to do what somebody else does or what somebody else tells you is the thing of the hour. Do you. Because can't anyone beat you doing you if you do you to the ultimate. God said to me, I spoke last week, Dr. Shabazz at Trinity University, a young man said to me, well, how do you deal with critics, Reverend Sharpton, that say all you do is like publicity? I said, I do. He said, I don't understand. I said, that's part of what I do. Activists' job is to put light in dark situations. Don't nobody call me to keep a secret. Eric Garner's mother didn't call me that night and say the police choked my son to death, now just keep it between us. She called me to help blow it up. That's what I do. I'm the blow-up guy. But then you need lawyers to move toward the legal representation. And you need legislators that will legislate and change the laws to the no chokehold law. All of us have a role to play if we don't get in each other's way. I remember years ago, there was a killing in New York, and I called for a day of civil disobedience, and we went to jail, blocking up various thoroughfares, and I decided, it was the Sean Bell case, I decided me and his prospective wife was going to get arrested down by the Brooklyn Bridge. We got arrested, and they brought all of us in from around the city, put us in what they call the bullpen behind the judge's chambers, waiting to be arraigned, to be released. And there was about several hundred of us in this big bullpen, and we all talking and laughing. And I looked over and saw a lawyer over there, and I said, "What are you doing in here?" He said, "Well, you know, I was at the bridge, and you spoke and inspired and fired me up, so I just laid down with everybody else." I said, "Well, who gonna get us out of here?" So play your role. Martin Luther King gave us a nonviolent direct action strategy. In your face, make it known. This Sunday be the 55th year since the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. And we go every year and march across that bridge. I'll be there on this Sunday. Malcolm X gave us pride, gave us a sense of we were global way before the phrase was coined, that we should relate to our African roots, and that we should be willing to stand up no matter what. We needed Malcolm and Martin. We needed the direct action, but we needed the self-esteem to know who we were while we did the direct action. We needed the nonviolence, but we also needed the cutting edge. We did not need to choose between them. And you in the generation behind us, you are the beneficiaries of the lineage in your intellectual bloodstream of being the benefit of Malcolm and Martin. I fought for the last several decades with the present occupant in the White House. I fought Donald Trump on Central Park 5. I fought Donald Trump on housing discrimination. He turned Democrat once, come to our convention, the National Action Network, then goes back and forward. I know Donald Trump. Donald Trump's pride was that he was the son of a builder and a millionaire, and never understood how I, who had none of that, could fight him. But I realized that people suffered and died for me. I realized that people chose to shed their blood so I'd have an opportunity. So I was just as proud of my lineage as he was of his. And I thank God I was raised in a way that I never doubted that. In fact, I never knew I was underprivileged until I got to Brooklyn College. I was sociology class. Professor said, "We're going to study the underprivileged." I said, "All right with me." He said, "We're going to study kids living in housing projects, single-parent home, on welfare, and go to the store, buy the food with food stamps." I said, "He talking about me." Because my mother never raised me as to what I wasn't. She raised me as to what she expected me to be. And I'd walk her every morning in Brownsville to the Saratoga and Livonia train station. And all the way there, she would tell me, life is not about where you start. Life is about where you're going. And don't let nobody tell you where you could go. And don't let nobody cut off your dreams. Dream even if you are in the worst of conditions, dream. And you today should not only celebrate the life and legacy of Malcolm and Martin, you ought to emulate in your life the Malcolm and King in you. You ought to say, what is it in me that makes me become a great contributor to society? There's something in me that only I could do, and don't let anybody devalue you. And don't let no one tell you what you cannot be. There's no one in history that was expected to be there. They had to fight against doubters and adversity to be there. I remember when I ran for president in 2004. Obviously, I didn't make it. Purdy didn't help me out, but that's another story. And I remember we were debating one night, and Carol, we were in Detroit. And at the end of the debate, I came off stage, and a reporter from the Detroit Free Press said to me, Reverend Al, I said, yeah. He said, you did pretty good. I said, thank you. He said, no, I think you won the debate. I said, well, thank you. He said, you have to feel proud to be up there debating governors and senators. You should be proud of yourself. And I looked at him, I said, they ought to be proud to be up there with me. And he looked a little confused. He said, well, why would you say that? I said, because they all come from money and power and 3 and 4 generations of legal scholars. I didn't come from any of that. I hadn't heard from my father in 23 years. My mother was on welfare. I said, they were born on third base and had to hit a triple to get on that stage. I wasn't even born in the stadium. I had to come down through the parking lot, down through the bleachers, then get on the field and hit a triple. But we all on the same stage now. And if they had to come through it, I came through, they may not have made that stage. So I must be stronger than them and at least as smart as them, because I got to the same place and had none of the advantages. Don't look down on where you are. Prove that you are better than those that look down on you. I close on that same note because I want you to leave here with the little Martin and King growing in you. I was walking through LaGuardia Airport, Carol, just about a year and a half ago. A lady stopped me. She looked about my age, white female. And she said, Reverend Al, I said, I'm running to the plane. I had already talked to some people. They don't do autographs no more, it's selfies now. And if I'm late for a plane, I always have somebody that want to do a selfie that don't know how to work their phone. But she said, no, I don't want a selfie. She said, I want to ask you a question. I said, yes. She said, do you remember a teacher in your junior high school named Miss, and she gave me her last name. And I stopped, I said, sure, I remember her. She said, you do? I said, yes, she was my homeroom teacher. She said, well, that's my mother. I said, that's your mother? She said, yeah. I didn't tell her why I remembered her mother. Her mother, I remember when I was in the 7th grade, asked all of the students in home class one day what we wanted to be. And as they went around the room, everybody said what they wanted to be. And she got to me, I said, well, you know, I'm a boy preacher in the Pentecostal church, and I want to be a community leader like Adam Clayton Powell. She said, oh, Al, you know, why don't you study a lot in shop? Do something with your hands. And I never got that. And as I got older, I was always determined I was going to show her that I could be what she didn't think I could be. And I didn't tell that to her daughter. Her daughter, I looked back at her, I said, well, is she still alive? She said, yes, she's in her 80s, will be 90 soon. She said, but you know, I have to tell you. She says, the highlight of her week is that every Saturday and Sunday evening, we can't call her because she's sitting in front of the television watching your television show. The woman that told me to don't worry about speaking and leading ended up having to watch me on TV. Make your doubters become your fans. Make your disbelievers become the ones that extol you. Stand up and be who you were born to be. You were not born to be nothing. You were born to be something. Greatness is in you. Celebrate Malcolm and Martin by being what everybody else doubts, but what you know in your heart you were born to be. Thank you, and God bless you.